Sure.
Alrighty, all right, let's me press that record button, and here we go. All right, we have a wonderful, wonderful show for you guys again. Hopefully, this one won't be another month late. I'm not going to make any promises, though. But before we can get started, let me bring up our wonderful channel sponsor, Aho Patchworks. That's right, you know him, you love him, the greatest patch merchant of all time, Aho Patchworks. You can right now go to ahopatchworks.com and use coupon code /AGCast for 10% off your order. He told me that's supposed to change at some point. He hasn't changed it yet, so let's just hope he forgets. But that being said, we have another Not Dr. Death show again. Who could that special guest be? Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, this is UberClay. I'm the latest catalog admin. I was recently promoted, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I feel like if you've been watching this long enough, true fans will probably recognize the name UberClay because you've probably made. Goodness, I've actually kind of lost track of how many designs you've done right now. But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting seeing how much, like, when I first started this off, a bunch of newer dev names I was starting to hear, and yours was UberClay and UBERPOOR were the ones I kept mixing up, and
Right.
you guys kept always,
Right.
you guys were the names that would always keep appearing in the beta like list, and I was like, oh, okay, and it's kind of interesting seeing where things have kind of progressed now, and now here you are. So I guess now you're a new admin. I guess before we start real fast, do you want to mention what admin you're in? Because I guess that's kind of an important role, right?
Yeah, it is. At least for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be focusing on helping Dr. Death review betas and submissions for release through the catalog.
So yeah, well, from what I guess, like, again, more layman's terms, I guess you'll be helping with speeding up some of the, I guess, release dates for everything, pretty much, right?
Yeah, to go through, there's a lot goes into reviewing a beta, and it can be frustrating, not just for everyone involved, but it's very rare unless it's a seasoned dev to get a package that doesn't need some kind of reform, and it's not it's not a diss or a negative at all. It's just that especially there's just certain criteria that you have to adhere to, and so there's a back and forth process of getting everything squared away, and it can take, even a normal review can take a minute. So and we just have a lot of stuff in the pipe right now. It's really exciting, but the downside of that is that there's a lot of work, but things are moving. I've been at this for about a week now, which isn't very long, but we've been able to make substantial progress in just the last maybe 5 to 6 days. So if we continue on this trend, it's going to make a huge impact, and you're going to start seeing stuff drop pretty regular.
And that's wonderful news too, because that's. I guess we'll save those releases probably for the next month. But from what I've heard is that we'll be having next month will be a lot of releases and a lot of big ones too. So I guess that's something to be looking forward to. But I guess let's go for right now. What month is it? Oh, goodness gracious. This is for the month of June, right? Or I guess the month of June betas. Which one do you want to start off with, I guess, first?
Well, let's talk about Dak X's projects first. Let's see, he's got a couple of things that are of interest that are going on right now. The first one is a completely DIY AR-15 buffer spring.
That's fascinating. Okay.
Yep, they've got a printable spring winder that they can take basically music wire or Glock spring stock, and they can wind it to create a DIY buffer spring. And not only is that useful for AR-15, but things like the FGC-9 or anything that employs an AR style buffer spring is one less component that you have to actually go buy. So,
well, and that too. Yeah, that is also, more amazing too for people that are outside the U.S. where you can't just buy an AR-15 buffer spring.
Yes, absolutely. It's really critical for people who live in areas that you're just not, those parts aren't accessible. You just have to make them yourself. And so, this gives you the ability to print, a spring winder that's specific for that purpose. So, That's pretty exciting. The other component to that, which is they kind of pairs well with it, is they actually have a DIY gas block and gas tube with a printable tube bender in order to give it the appropriate shape for an AR, I need to say. So I don't know all of the fine details about that because I just saw that today. I think you've got a picture of it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I guess sadly we don't have the picture of the buffer spring. In fact, that's the one I'm kind of fascinated on. But the buffer spring, the gas tube one is. Oh, I see that delicious Pinty site on there. But that and I do
that
see.
Thing looks all Borderlands too, right? But it's cool though.
Yeah, there's some rustic vibe to it for sure. I'll give you that. But what I like is what I'm kind of curious with this one is. Okay, so this is the gas tube area. How is it holding up with? How is the heat resistance working on that? Because if you ever grab the AR barrel after you shoot it a couple times,
it's hot as fuck. Yeah,
it gets quite hot. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious on. Well, that seems like a 3D printed one. I mean, is it going to be in PLA? Is this? I mean, this actually might be a good use for HCPLA in all honesty, or ASA.
Now, I am not 100% sure, but my first thought is that is probably the what's printed is kind of like the spring winder, where it's a jig to drill a sleeve and then a jig to bend the tube. I don't know if I think the functional parts are printed. It's just assisting in making metal ones is what I'm presuming that, because again I just saw this earlier today. And I haven't had a lot of time to talk to DACX about it. Well, he blew my mind with his other project, but yeah. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you can message him later, and I can also update. We can put that in the description too, if we just to make sure later. But yeah, no, that is. I mean, first off, that's awesome too. The gas again, it's more of like how much of the stuff can you also do DIYable? But I guess let me also let you get down to the third project, or is the gas tube in block? Is that the 3 projects altogether?
No, the third project is really interesting, and we've seen a little bit of this from. One of the guys at BLC, coming up with a kind of like, I guess I'm going to just call it a quote unquote GunCAD caliber. So they're calling this a 338-223 ungovernable. This is supposed to be similar to both 300 blackout and 338 straight. So the idea here is to get a direct blowback rifle cartridge that performs roughly in accordance with 30 carbine using a 220 grain bullet. And I forwarded you some pictures there that he gave me, but it's quite advanced, but they've got a really good workflow going, and it's really exciting. What they're trying to do is the end goal of this caliber is going to be 100% DIY. It's going to be using all printed tools. You'll be able to cast these bullets, load your own casings. I believe it uses a trimmed down 223 case. Yeah. So you take a 223 brass or case and trim it down and then load it with this, and it'll be like a rifle caliber FGC9 is the end goal of this, is to put it in something like that. So now, it's pretty exciting when you frame it in that perspective.
Honestly, okay. Let me try to think about how I want to go about this, because first and foremost, the more I'm thinking about it too, is the DIY spring stuff. Like, as much as I want to say that's really cool for gun stuff, that's also just really cool for just practicality of like. Right, what I mean, right. Again, people, not only, as much as I'm thinking about it, there's other applications for springs as well besides gun things. So that's in of itself opens a whole bunch of new potential for other things as well. Just like engineering wise, now you can also like fully do DIY stuff. And then plus too, if you're the more privacy conscious type of person, buying the springs that would fit in the AR-15 might be a little bit of a red flag. But piano wire, type of stuff is not really that. Yeah, that would be a little bit less. So that's in its own thing kind of amazing. The DIY gas tube, I like the idea of more DIYable stuff. But this cartridge one now this one honestly, like, now I'm not sure how much of this you kind of know off the top of your head, like pressure wise. Is it subsonic? Probably is subsonic. It sounds like it's going 300 blackout. But
he sent me a bunch of data on this. I'm looking here at the it's kind of patterned after the 338-223 straight, which a 200 grain bullet is
quite a heavy bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It's going to have a lot of kinetic energy, and it's going to run really good suppressed too, probably. But there's a photo I think I sent you of a 300 blackout, and then just the bullet, and then the 338-223 Wildcat in the brass, and so you can kind of see the magnitude of that round before it goes in, and it's 2/3 the length of a loaded 223 bullet. So it's a big old chunk of lead. It's very cool.
I'm looking at it. It is a goofy looking thing, but to be honest, like I am not the best at reloading stuff myself, and I'm not sure how well you are well versed on this too. To be honest, this one I think probably will be the most interesting one for most people in that regard of this is a brand new cartridge that does actually really, I can see the potential of why it's a lot easier to do. And now I guess because I noticed too, it's not bottleneck, which would make it a lot easier also on our
straight wall.
Wall. So in that case, in theory, you might even be able to use an ECM barrel for this type of stuff.
Yeah. You absolutely could. Straight blowback ECM. I had a conversation with Vin. Oh gosh, it's probably been a year ago, but that was kind of one of my questions as far as future. And I don't know what some of this. This is probably more applicable because in other countries you can't get certain. Like in America, you can get all kinds of different straight wall cartridges. But my question was, well, how come nobody's done an FGC9 in 357 Magnum or 44 or 45 long Colt or something really interesting like that? You could totally pull that off with the exact same principles, but if I live in France or somewhere, I probably can't get those. But taking a 223 brass, which you probably can get all over because it's a 5.56 brass at a NATO caliber, and trimming the top off and then loading it with your own cast bullet to produce a custom calibers, seems like it would be totally doable.
Again, I'm not the best when it comes to bullet stuff myself. I know you got the case, you got the actual bullet itself, you got the casing, and I guess it makes the full cartridge. Rimmed is just when it's a straight wall, and then there's a little bit of the bottom part of it is kind of extended a bit, like a 9mm cartridge versus a 22, basically. The 22 is you got this.
It has the it's why you have to use moon clips with a 45 ACP revolver. It's because it doesn't have the flare in the back end.
Right. So because my only challenge, because the brass itself is what I would imagine would probably be the next hardest part, is getting that bottom part to be something that your average person can do. I've never tried. Again, I'm willing to just admit this is something I'm very ignorant in myself. But that I would imagine, I don't know, what is the potential of just making a straight casing in a way that almost anyone can kind of just machine out of a typical. I mean, steel cartridges exist, but maybe an aluminum or something.
Sure, I don't know. I think the idea with this particular application though is that you would be able to get empty brass and then modify them. But yeah, you're right. If you were going to produce brass from scratch, you'd have to have a way to draw it probably, and it would be you could do it with a big enough shop. I mean, shops do exist, all over Europe and everywhere else, but that's really pretty specialized, to do that. So
that's a conversation I've had with Ames before about he kind of likes the idea of what if you could get a sympathetic machine shop to help you out type of a thing. That opens its own door for everything. And I think that's another concept that I do like to see where that heads. But a lot of these are really cool. I wish we could add a little bit more to it, but I guess if you guys have any questions about this, if you guys want to know more specifically about these projects in particular, perhaps we could maybe I can try to reach out to the developer and maybe we can get some more information. Maybe if he feels comfortable with it, he could possibly come on the live stream. We can get more questions and more, go a little bit more in depth these projects if you guys like this one. And that goes for any of the projects too. But this, I think, go ahead.
I'll preface this is that, a lot of the things that we're talking about, I'll be honest with you, out of, maybe one of the Tommy Hicks betas is about the only one that I'm in and know a little bit about. Most of these, like Doc, he kind of knows, more of the overarching umbrella of what's going on. I'm still, I know a lot about the betas that I'm in or I'm helping with, but the generalized knowledge I'm kind of playing catch up on. But making good progress.
You're doing great so far, don't worry. But yeah, no, I'll say, if you guys want to know more about this one, please leave a comment below, and we can see what we can do, and hopefully we can maybe either get the developer to respond to some of the comments, or, we can have them on. But I guess let's go on to the next one then.
Okay, so the next one that we'll talk about is there it is. Okay, so this is this is the PLAR. And it is by Streetsweeper Arms. And so what this is this is a really cool bullpup chases for an AR upper, and it's meant to look like the QBZ 95. So I think you've got a picture of it there, and this thing is it's a AR makeover, but it looks really cool. And
as someone who's had the opportunity of actually being able to like hold the QZ, I never got to shoot it, but I was able to like dry fire it.
Nice.
Quite literally, it is. I have not touched this 3D printed build. I haven't seen it shoot. I haven't done anything with it, but I already have a very confident opinion that whatever the developer does is already going to make it instantly better than the actual QBZ, that you probably would rather just have this printed one would actually just be a better design in general, and you should just go with this one instead, because ultimately you're only getting the QBZ because of the aesthetics, and it's a unique gun. It's not a good gun, and when you buy it, you're going to realize well, I have it now. Time to put it on the shelf.
Yeah, it's definitely got a vibe, man. It's unique. So I haven't had a chance to try to print one or play with it, but looks really interesting. And like the Grozny's great, but the price point of entry for an AK is so much higher than an AR. I've got several recent AR builds that I built for like fucking $300 or something. So you can put an AR upper together for chicken scratch nowadays. So it's a really fun, cheap build that looks like it'd be a lot of, it'd be a gas and a real head turner at the range,
Oh, 100%. Again, what I like about this one too is the FAMAS was the FAMAR, that was the other one that someone did.
Yep.
And I believe I think, what is it, gutter? Was it gutter cheese? Gutter something?
Yeah, it was probably gutter cheese.
Because I know he's been posting a lot about it. I think he says it uses a lot of the same components as the FAMAR. And by the way, I think we covered this last month, but I'm just going to go over it again because why not? So I think it uses a lot of the same components. Like when it comes to the FAMAR, the FAMAS itself is kind of a cool gun. I've never been able to shoot one of those. I don't know how those work, but those to me kind of always, I just assumed were cool, good guns. And okay, the AR one is a kind of a cope that just isn't as good. But when it comes to the QBZ, the QBZ itself is just a knockoff of FAMAS, but horrible in every single way. Quite literally, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the PLAR is actually a better designed firearm. It's going to be
a better gun.
A better gun than an actual, again, if you if someone really had the desire to and SLS printed it, congratulations, maybe you can get a military contract. It really, I've never been so disappointed with a firearm in my life before than when I held a QPC. So I've never felt such a wow, this is just this is terrible in every single way. I love bullpups because I'm one of those guys, but even I have to admit this one ain't it. But this actually I do like this one solely because I already know this is going to be better.
I mean, that's really the strength of of doing things like making a design like this in a DIY scenario is, and I ran into the same thing with Mac frames, is that you can fix all of the stupid shit that got past the designers when it first came out, and you can make all the little tweaks that really should have been made back in the day. And so I have a feeling that you're absolutely right. This, you're going to be able to make and have a much better experience with this rifle than you will with a with a regular QBZ.
Honestly, I'm fascinated on how the trigger is going to feel, because like the QBZ trigger was like I've fired AUGs, I've fired Tavors, I've never fired an F2000, but like the progressive trigger, like it's not the best, but like you can get used to it. Like the QBZ was just like you can feel the little clump, like it's just
I know at all.
Yeah, like it's. That being said, I see the guy with street sweeper arms. I also got a handle street sweeper, the old DD. That thing, it's the street sweeper itself is actually quite literally the worst trigger I've ever held. That one,
oh, wow.
I thought I hit the wall first. No, I was actually just cycling it. No. You have to like really yank. That's like it feels like a 20-pound trigger.
Wow.
That actually, it's the street sweeper itself actually might be the worst trigger, but that's just me going on a tangent. But I guess, yeah, honestly, I like bullpups, and just because I already know, like, I hate the QBZ, I like this already, so
yeah,
it fixes every problem I have with the QBZ by making it better and like using AR parts. So like, yeah, it's really great.
Well, I'll tell you, we can segue this into another interesting build, which is the guillotine, but it's a different guillotine than I think the ones that you guys talked about already. It's the Recession Ruger guillotine, right? And so, let's see here. Yeah, here, I've got a picture of it.
Oh,
this is the,
I'm looking
yeah,
at it
this
right
is,
now.
this is the, this is, by NotThatTimmyHicks or TH Engineering. Our audience probably knows that, so this Recession Ruger was kind of my baby. I love the fact that people have made just all kinds of, have done all kinds of shenanigans with it. It just, every time I see something like this, it brings me unending joy. So this is a guillotine, and it's made with the Recession Ruger platform. Is basically what this is. It's got a reverse Glock mag or 9mm mag. I guess I can't really call that a Glock mag, but it's like, you see how it basically pitches forward, and it's brilliant.
I was looking at it for a second, and then I was just like, yeah, this does look really cool. It's like it looks like the guillotine, which I was like talking to Dr. Death about, like, that looks like a Destiny gun. Like, it was like, what was it, like the Soros regime or something? I forgot what it was. Like, yeah, it looked like that, and I was like, that is like, this looks like a sci-fi prop. If anything, like, this is like the type of like gun you could just like print and put it on a wall. And then, and then I started looking at this one. Like, yeah, it's a guillotine. It looks just like the one I remember. And then I see it. Then I see the little Ruger slide. Then I see that Ruger slide in there, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Whoever did this, I need to pat you on the back. Give me a PayPal, give me a Cash App, let me buy you a beer. You deserve it. Yeah. That is. Okay.
And remember, the Ruger kits are still dirt cheap. You can get them off Gunbroker for, sometimes $50 or whatever. And I mean, it's one of the cheapest, most versatile, most forgiving, funnest builds that are out there. And I mean, I think I put a list together for Low Point Goat here a while back. I mean, I think I had almost 14 or 15 remixes, all different kinds that people have done to that platform. I mean, you can do just about anything you want with it, man. It's really cool.
I always love it because, like, I don't know, you can correct me on this one, because I always kind of viewed it as like Ivan's like old test frame that he probably like got him like Foscat a while ago, and then just always kind of like updated for other things. It's like that was what the 3011 was. It was like it was Ivan's test frame that was just like him just seeing how the 1911 worked, and he just learned like, hey, would you look at that? The AR-15 like hammer just slides in perfectly for a 1911, and wow, right. This thing's actually really reliable, and when you put a brace on it, like, the thing actually like shoots really good. Like, it shoots. Yeah. That honestly, I whenever I shot the 3011, I never put on like the brace on it just because like I thought it looked goofier without it, and I think it's funnier without it. But like, if you actually like wanted it to be practical, you throw a brace on it, and like that thing becomes a tack driver. And I know why I haven't released it, because of that exact reason of like, it honestly is a lot more reliable than an actual 1911 in a way. And like, it just like it, once you get over like how goofy it is, like you you understand it. Like you understand the platform and you get like why this exists, and it's awesome. And then when I saw your recession Ruger, I'm like, oh yeah, so you basically created 3011, but like cheaper, so everyone else could like now experience what is the joy of like this it is design. And now, and my favorite thing about the 3011 too was there was like dust cover designs as well, but you'll never see anyone print it, especially me, because while they did look cool and people did spend time on them, nothing beats that goofiness of like it's like shooting an AK without the dust cover. It's just like it's right. You don't see it often, and when you do, it kind of like, you know, it's a head turner in a way because people forget. Oh yeah, that like dust cover is literally just that, a dust cover.
Right.
But
no, I wanted it to be a really affordable, easy, kind of entry level project. And it's morphed into that and so much more with the Recession Ruger. You know, there's so many people have created different things with it, and this is just the latest. So, and I'm sure there'll be more down the line. But if you're a cyberpunk fan, you want a guillotine on a budget, this is your build right here.
So let me go ahead and ask this one real quick because I am kind of curious on this one. So, all right, the magazine you said is a flip thing. So this is is this a Glock magazine?
Yeah, it's a Glock magazine that's backwards. I don't know if I could classify it as a Glock magazine because it probably doesn't go in a Glock, but it is a Glock-ish. It's probably a double stack 9mm. Tommy, I think I saw him say that he flipped the follow around backwards. So instead of pitching it back, it's pitched forward, but the follower is just somehow he made it work with it reversed. I don't know as far as the magazine latch if it conforms really anymore to what you would normally see in a Glock, but so I don't think you could take that, and maybe you probably couldn't take it and put it in any other build, but it is as the first time I've seen a magazine going. I mean, I have seen that banana magazine that Neutron Nate made, but this is the first reverse, like it's going the wrong fucking direction.
Yeah, no, okay.
So,
like, I'll just say this. Someone told me that every 3D printed gun build like looks like an H because it's always like an A2 grip with like a Glock mag. So it just like they are the exact same angle. So it always looks like a letter H from a distance, like a profile. This is not a letter H. In fact, this is like the first thing I noticed of like, wow, this looks like something brand new. I guess, let me just think about the questions I can obviously think about. Okay, using AR-15 fire control group, I'm guessing. Okay.
Yep.
So this magazine, though, I'm guessing, I think, Tommy Hicks, he's more of like a DIY type of guy, but I'm imagining perhaps this is using a Glock spring and then a Glock follower he flipped, and then I'm guessing the rest of it is going to be printed. So,
well, and I think, wouldn't surprise me if the follower's printed too. Most of all of I've got even, Sten mags and everything now that are printed, that use printed followers. So, I mean, it's interesting in the community. We've really started, all of the things that used to be so challenging or, they've evolved to the point to where, I remember even when the Mendendez or whatever the hell it's called came out, it's like, that was big shit. Well, got printed magazines for everything now, hell, printed drums, whatever. So I imagine this is a mostly printed build, except for the ejector and the top end, the slide, and the barrel and the recoil spring, and the AR fire control group.
So, yeah, because I'm just trying to think about it. It's like if anyone that does want to build it, so I'm guessing like, okay, you will have to. You probably will need, I guess, like you'll have to print the magazine, but at least it seemed. From what it sounds like, is hopefully a Glock spring should work, and the Glock springs are not that expensive. In fact, I think it was like Ghost, the guys who make the cool like Glock disconnectors, they usually sell like 3-packs for pretty cheap, like the long stendo mag springs. So like Glock mag springs are not hard to come by, as they're not nearly as hard as like AR-15 mag springs, which are a little bit more. Those can be a little bit harder to find. Glock mag springs you can find literally anywhere. So
yeah, they're $2-3 maybe.
Yeah, and like I said, I got like a 3-pack myself from like Ghost a while ago. They're not they work fine, but that is a goofy. It took me a second. That is the goofiest thing I've ever seen, but you know what? I'm all for it. That's awesome. But all right, let's go on to the next one.
All right, so now we got, so UberPoor's got a couple projects. The first one is he has they're calling it the ARM P5 V2, or AR MP5 V2, I guess I should say. It's an improved MP5 trigger pack that uses an AR fire control group. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I am not, that's one of the few platforms that I really don't know a lot about, because I do not have an MP5 and I have not built one. But I think the idea here is that they're using the AR fire control group to replace the MP5 fire control group.
So I can mention just like I haven't built an MP5 before. I haven't even built Ivan's KP5 before, but I have shot an MP5 before, and I've shot an SP5 before, which is a civilian one.
Right.
The MP5 is way nicer in full auto because the trigger's atrocious. The trigger is atrociously bad. And in full auto, it's not a big issue because, of course not, it's full auto. The SP5, which is the nice civilian one that, everyone, if you aren't an SOT and you aren't, lucky enough like me to go to like sometimes like, range shooting events, that's the one that you'd probably get. And you will learn quickly that trigger is like, of course, it's HK, and they're not going to try to make it any better. It's HK, and if it's good enough for the military, it's good enough for them. So you should just get better. The trigger's atrociously bad. It's like it's gritty. It's just not a good trigger, and that's actually what makes the KP5 so nice. Is that it uses an AR-15 fire control group, which means now you have a AR-15 trigger, which honestly is so much nicer to shoot. That being said, is if you have an actual MP5, maybe you don't want to spend that much. I think some companies do make like replacement trigger packs, but those can be, it's HK. So what is it, like $200, $300 for essentially what is going to be a AR-15 fire control group, really?
Yeah. And it's going to cost them, $15, and they're going to resell it for $300. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, but then you got the aftermarket solutions, which are like other guys who make their own company ones, which again, like machining costs, like I get it to some extent of like you have to run a business and like, how many MP5s do you really have? Like that would, again, like if you're a military contractor, this isn't really a problem because you can just go in full auto, and in full auto, okay, the trigger doesn't matter as much. The MP5 shoots like a dream in full auto. It's a fantastic. I know why people still like it, but like that trigger is atrocious in semi-automatic. So it's like, I get it. But this, I think, is really, really nice. Of like now you can have your MP5 and you can actually enjoy shooting it. Like this is a really, really nice thing to have. And I guess if you do have an MP5, I'd strongly recommend giving this a shot. Like if you have one of the SP5s or maybe one of like the Turkish clones or something, which I think in theory, I believe I don't own one of the Turkish ones because I would be caught dead owning a Turkish gun, but I've heard the cope is they use the same tooling and machining, so perhaps it works. If you have one of those, I'd recommend giving it a shot.
The Canics are Turkish and they're pretty good. I don't know about the Turkish MP5s though.
I have shot competitions. I think it's their Steel Rival, the Steel Seas Rival, like their rival one, their competition one. I have never seen a single person run that and it not jam on them every single time. Like
nice.
It is. Every one of them will tell you it's my favorite shooting gun, but like it just always jams whenever I wanted to like use it for a competition. I'm like, oh yeah, so it's like it's so great, except when it ever actually matters. Okay, yeah, like I've heard the polymer ones are okay. My friend had a what is it? They're like concealed carry one. I liked it a lot, but it was like always jamming on us, and it was just like it got annoying. I ended up getting a shield. My shield has never once jammed on me. So
wow.
But that being said, I know I've heard the Canic stuff are better. I mean, they do have good triggers, like whatever. But this if I
love a Canic trigger.
I might get a normal, like I think what is their F. I might get their rival, but not the steel one. I heard the polymer one is just better, but like whatever. Right now I'm not in the need for another handgun. I personally, I like using my dagger for competitions because it's like it's the PSA dagger. Like I like to challenge the pores with the other pores weapons. But
right. I actually did I don't mean to run off subject too bad, but I did the beta and the release for FMDA's Canic frame, which I named the Boskurt. And if you look in the remix or the remix folder, I made a PDW version with a folding brace, and it's badass. Like as far as a shoulder fired 9mm, you can run Beretta 92 Stendos in it, and it's savage. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'm so upset Dr. Death never told me. I remember that one very well. Dr. Death messed up so many times on that. I remember that one. We had to re-record it twice because he gave me the wrong images. He gave me the wrong images, and I was this doesn't look like a Canic at all. Like, what do you mean? Like, it was like, this looks like a CZ75. Like, this looks nothing like a CZ. That's a story for a different day. But going back to this of so I'm guessing this is just an MP5 trigger that is. I can tell that there are some MP5 components in it, like the safety kind of looks like, and it's got Again, I've never shot an MP5, but I have built, a SETME before. It looks like it's got the out of battery protection.
If you look closely, I do believe they're running the super safety on some of these. That's the slip trip there on the far left side.
That is fascinating, and it almost looks like it's translucent printed, which is fascinating to me. I'm not sure if that's just a camera thing or lighting. But if someone also managed to do some translucent filament, that probably means it could run on literally any other filament, which is honestly cool. But and I'm trying to remember, there was a dev for the month of April that was still doing tests in only PLA, which I respect so much still. Of if your design works in PLA, it can work at anything. That was what Spooky always taught me too. That's what it was his design philosophy for a lot of things. I think he's saying he's starting now to kind of go to PLA plus more now for some of his newer stuff. But if you can get to work in PLA or the cheapest filament, even more power to you. But okay, so I'm guessing then this also probably could work for the super safety too. Now, I wonder if we're going to go the full route for it too, and if they're going to get do a drop-in sear while we're at it as well. I think, who is the guy, who did is it the Choosy Express? No, there's a couple of 3-position drop-in things, but I know one of them had a super safety that they did.
Yeah.
SF something.
There was FRT stuff. I am drawing a little bit of a blank. I want to say it was.
He had a bunch of letters in his name.
Yeah, it's some. It's a handle that I don't know if I could pronounce if I wanted to, but I think he's the one that made that slip trip that's in that.
Right.
Fire patrol group.
Follow your local laws.
Yeah. Right.
And with that, let's go on to the next one. What do we got next?
So UBERPOOR's got another project that he's doing. It's very exciting. He's calling it the Long Point, and it's a printed high point 995 9mm receiver. And I have several parts kits. Those parts kits on Gunbroker usually go for $25 or $30. Now they get you a little bit on shipping because they're a little bit more expensive than your normal shipping charge. But the high point carbines, they are one of the cheapest part kits that you can get on Gunbroker. So it's just very exciting beta.
Oh God, that sounds wonderful. But it reminds me of the days of before anyone cared about high points, so you could pick up the old parts kits for $30. Perhaps people are getting tired of me mentioning of the olden days, the good old days. But yeah, there used to be a time where you can get high point parts kits for $30. And now,
you still can. You just have to. They're just not guaranteed to be $30 anymore. But I see high points going on the Gunbroker auctions for $50 or less a lot. But there's definitely people out there buying them. Where before there was you might have been the only bid. So
those were the days.
There's still, and one thing I've noticed about the auctions too is, the economy is kind of on the rocks, man, and there's not as many people out there with expendable income, and that probably includes us and GunCAD. But there are some weeks you just got to watch it, and don't be dead set on buying a kit that night. Be willing to sit for a couple of weeks and watch them, and you'll find a night where you'll get a handful of them go for nothing. That's usually what I do.
But like, yeah, no, if anyone's my friend, one of my really good friends, he actually has one of the 10mm high point carbines and stuff, and
nice, very nice.
Like, I'll just say it, like, as much as I like to make fun of high points, and I think everyone, let's just be real, everyone does, but those like carbines are legit. They are fun to shoot.
Oh yeah, they are. Sure.
Now, the only way I think one could make it better is like giving them Glock mags, because God, are those high point mags like the only problem I feel with the high point carbines are quite literally it's still a high point, and you have to use those high point magazines, which are just awful. But
you're not going to get a Glock mag in there because high point makes stupid slides too narrow on purpose, so you can't do it.
I know.
For the 9mm, you can use a Canic magazine or a TP9 magazine if you made the magwell. I don't know about a 10mm though. I'd have to find something that was for the larger cart, like a 45 mag or something that was maybe single stack. Get it to work.
My friend was trying to tell me like there was a way. He was trying to get, I think, like the 40 mag. You could like Dremel a little part off of it, and it would fit properly, I think, was what he was trying to like show me. Me and him are like, we're both like monkeys with Dremels basically, so like it was, I don't know if we ended up getting to work, but it seemed to function most of the time. With the mag, like it could be done probably better if you actually know what you're doing. But yeah, no, high point carbines are like legit fun little things to get, and like even if like you can't get the printed one, I would say like they are fun things to try out if you never had the opportunity to.
Well, and you don't have to worry about if you clean it every time you shoot it, you throw it in the back of the truck and bang it around. It's not going to break anybody's heart. I mean, they don't cost that much, So
if you made any mistakes and you're getting chased by the police and you just need to dump it real quick, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, there you go. I almost bought one of their new 10mm. I saw it at a gun store when I was picking up something, and that thing looked like it had a fucking mailbox on the top of it. Man, it was outrageous. I mean, it was like, what the fuck? Like a loaf of bread reciprocating back and forth on the top of that frame, man. It was great. I was like, yeah, I got to come back and buy this thing, man. It's fucking amazing, Yeah,
I know. My favorite videos was like I was watching a YouTube like shorts of like a couple of hood boys, being chased by the cops, and like they're like, oh crap, like, and they just like they're pulling out their Glocks with switches and they just throw them out the window. I'm like, oh my god, like
there you go.
But the thing is, like, those are going to be on Gunbroker. Like, wait and see, and you'll find the way those are the ones on Gunbroker is you'll buy a Glock that has no backplate on it, which is always a very funny thing because once a machine gun, always a machine gun. But sometimes cops, forget that and then will sell it.
There was a Glock on Gunbroker about a year ago, I think it was, or it might have been 2 years ago. But they listed it with the switch on the slide, and we had a big. It never made it to auction because people started retards started bidding on it, and next thing you know, it was like $5,000 or something. Like everybody was trying to buy it with the switch on the back of it, and they took it off. But I had a picture of it. We were goofing around on low point server with it, checking it every day, trying to see. We were taking bets on how high that that they were going to drive the bidding and whether it would even get to auction. They ended up yanking it. They didn't know what it was, and I was like, "Look at this, boys! They're going to sell a Glock with a switch on it. That's crazy,
I've heard stories from there's always those stories of like dudes who go to like flea markets, and then like half the time they find like sometimes like you got people that are like dumpster divers, they're like magnet fishers, and they'll find Glocks with switches on them, and shocker,
that's something, man.
It's a Glock with a switch on it. And you know what? Like, I ain't a cop. I don't know these laws. I'm just a seller, friend. And then you get like stories of guys who buy Glock switches from like flea markets. But the reason why you don't hear about them is usually most of them have you have the brains to not talk about it publicly. But like those are like stories that do happen every now and then. It's funny for Gunbroker because it's Gunbroker. Like anyone can see that, and like if I see that, my immediate thought is like, hey officer, what do you mean? Like it was being sold on Gunbroker. I didn't know. I just thought I was just buying a Glock, sir. Officer, I didn't know.
Yeah, I read an article not too long ago where somebody somewhere got a citation for having a destroyed serial number. And, I was chuckling because I bought several parts kits off every gun part, and they intentionally will etch the serial numbers out because they don't want to resell something that has a, identifying serial number on it. And I was like, that's crazy, man. Because gun broker, I'm sure, does the same thing, with some of their sellers anyways. So, yeah,
I mean, like, again, there's a whole story of once a machine gun, always a machine gun. So, like, in theory, that like, those Glocks that don't have backplates on them should not be allowed to be sold because those are technically now, like, full machine guns. But if you go to Gunbroker and you look hard enough, sometimes you'll see, again, a Glock with mysteriously, like, kind of like scuffed up like slides and then a missing backplate for some weird reason. You can never, I wonder why, huh? It's usually because, it was,
funny.
It's almost always of like, some dude tossed it out of the car while being chased, and then, it's a machine gun, it's a Glock with a switch on it, but it's still a Glock, right? Like, you just take, if you know anything about Glocks, quite literally just take off the switch and put on a normal backplate. Now you have a normal Glock again. So it's like, I can see why they're selling it. It's just funny when cops, forget the laws that they're supposed to be enforcing. But anywho, I guess that's the last one.
It is. That's all the betas that we have to talk about.
So I guess one thing we do with Doctor to Death was usually the releases. Now, I do know we have several releases coming up in, like, actually, as we record this, probably, like, tomorrow or, like, in a couple of days that everyone will be hearing about them. But for the month of June, I believe it was Ivan's, like, Plastikov V4.
Yep.
I was able to handle that actually at AK Masters. Ivan has done a great job with the Plastikov platform itself of, like, whether it's the most practical, like, an AR build, because AK parts kits are kind of more expensive. Yeah, that's for you to decide. But, like, what Ivan has done with it, in my opinion, it does.
Beautiful.
It really is getting nicer and nicer to the point where, like, honestly, at some point, if we can get it SLS printed, like, I could easily see it being a nice, almost new kind of, like, AK in a way. But it's a really cool thing of, like, you also have the, the top railed dust cover, which if you really wanted to, you could throw a magnifier. That's what Rice could have had for AK Masters, which was actually really, really nice. And it kind of, like, it is a nice design, building up from an AK platform, which is, again, a very old platform. It's kind of cool. That's the nice thing about printed gun stuff, is that you can kind of breathe new life and, kind of experiment your own way with the things that you have there. And I like it a lot.
I don't know how much experience you have with some of the new nylons, but I've got a few frames that I've made recently with the carbon fiber nylon. And that stuff is just fucking indestructible. These are like forever frames that I put on par with anything out there. They're not steel, but they don't melt, and they're just amazing. Very, very durable to a level that is, like I printed one of my Steyr frames out of nylon, and I printed one of the OK Zoomers out of the same nylon, and they're indestructible. I've run the living shit out of them, and they don't even have a scratch on them yet. It's amazing. If you printed that Plastikov out of nylon, that's overkill, but I bet you could hand it down to your kid,
I'll say this, because that was the thing that we were running into with the Plastikov, was one guy printed his in PLA, and his was running great the whole way through, but the issue was eventually the heat did sort of get to it, where I think it was either the dust cover or something that was kind of like, his zero was sort of shifting in a way that it ended up becoming sort of a detriment to him.
Gotcha.
That being said, was Rice Cutter, he printed all of his in nylon, and his ran flawlessly the whole way through. So,
nice.
Like, that is something that I learned, if anything, for, like, competition-wise. You probably would want to do a nylon just because of, like, the round counts you're doing, and sort of, especially it was, South Carolina heat, so it was pretty hot. So perhaps for a competition where you're kind of, like, having your gun kind of out in the sun also whenever you're done shooting it, it probably didn't help either. There was again, not a single catastrophic failure for the guy who printed his in PLA. In fact, it was shooting and firing fine. It was just for a competition where you're shooting at distances and your zero shifts just enough, like, yeah, now you're kind of having to readjust, like, on the fly. And in a competition where you're being timed and you're, it's a competition, right? It kind of becomes a little bit of a detriment. So, like, I do know for a fact, like, if the nylon it's kind of nice if it is. I think companies have gotten better with making their nylons where they're easier to print. Need to, or I'll be going to Red October soonish, which is why you guys should be buying those patches so I can finish paying those, or so I can pay those for those plane tickets. But the goal, what I want to do is I'm going to probably do Spooky's AR Mutant, AK Mutant thing. And
the Deviant.
With his Send Cut Send slide panels. And I think I'm going to use nylon for a lot of the components in that, because I think that would be a fun little goofy thing to do, is everyone's using, like, a Plastikov or something, and here I am with the true cursed gun of all.
No, that's hysterical.
But that will probably be, like, hopefully if enough people buy patches, like, it'll probably be, I think, maybe like a $600, $700 build. If not, I might just go with only doing printed waffle mags and just see how that goes, because it's going to be in Vegas and Dianexus is there, and if worse comes to worse, we could just reprint feed lips. But we got plans for that one. But yeah, nice. I guess any conclusions you want to go for? I think we were. I wanted to do this a lot, or keep this nice and short, but I feel like this was really fun, anyways. But
Well, just a quick mention. I think it was. Well, you said the month of June. Okay. Well, I was going to mention the Hitchhiker, but I don't know. You might want to edit that out.
Actually, let's just mention it. Yeah, the Hitchhiker is finally released, by the way. It's on MAF.
Yep.
You can get the MAF parts kit. But go ahead.
I haven't. This is another one I haven't made, but I know what it is, and it's a really cool, really cheap DIY build that is great for anybody that's new to the community, and even old timers that want to crank out a custom backpack gun. So
I got to handle it a little bit when I was at AK Masters, because I was able to hang out with MAF in Pew all the way down in Florida. And that was really cool, actually. It's a cool design, really. It is actually awesome in that, it is a self-ejecting 22. It's a fun little gun. I also saw some, another cool dev, like Nikolai, I forgot what his other, like, Romanov, whatever his name is on catalog and everything. He's also kind of working on his own, like, suppressor for it. So, like, instead of the barrel, you can also, like, the normal barrel, he's also working on a, like, DIY suppressor flash barrel, so it's just an integrated suppressor.
Yep.
Which, that honestly, it's because, like, you can. It's, why not? I like the Hitchhiker as a design, and I think it's really cool. And
there's oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, I wasn't saying too much beyond that. I just think the Hitchhiker is a cool design, and honestly, if you guys have if that's something you're interested in, I don't think it's too expensive. I think MAF sells its own parts kit for it, so, like, it's nothing too complicated that no one else can do, but it's also, like, it's just kind of, like, nice just to get there. And also, you are kind of MAF is one of those kind of companies that I do respect. They kind of do give back to the community and everything, so they're good. Yeah,
no, I think it's, I think it's at some point I want to make one, but I've got a lot of projects going. I wanted to mention too the Come and Press It dropped, and that if you haven't ever reloaded, it's a great way to get introduced to reloading. Gives you the ability to get into it cheap, and that recently dropped and is on the catalog accessories page.
Okay, well, honestly, I guess let's probably end it here because we're about to reach an hour. But,
no problem.
I think this is a lot of fun. Hopefully, a lot of people enjoy this. I feel bad for last month. I feel like I have to make up for it because I sounded dead last month. Like I'm right now, like, editing the last month. A little bit of what's taking me longer, and that one is just like I don't even feel comfortable publishing how bad. Like, I was just out of it that day. But I think, this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to talking to you more too. And I think, maybe we can also do a stream at some point. Because again, now that you're in a little bit more of an administrative position, maybe we could probably, if you want to talk more, I guess, and kind of, because I do get messages from, like, developers that want to, like, I guess, they're always kind of nervous and they don't know who to talk to. For some reason, they talk to me because I'm not a developer, but all right. I always like to lead them in the right direction. But I feel like, having the administrators be a little bit more public facing, and also so people feel comfortable to kind of reach out to you guys, the guys who actually are the ones that have like a say in like the community. I think that's probably nice too. But
yeah, for just an open invitation to anybody out there, if you want to hit me up on something, you can message me on Rocket Chat. I'm UberClay. You can message me on Discord. I'm UberClay. And if you get on X, I'm Prince in the Revolution.
I'll be sure to put your link on X for here, because that one I can get away with.
Awesome. Yeah. And, my running joke used to be, 50%, at least 50% of the people that I message, don't ever reply. So I try to answer as many DMs as I can. So hit me up if you need something or if you have any questions.
All right. And, with that, I think that's a great time. And hopefully, I guess I'll see you guys next month.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, by the way. I appreciate it.
Don't mention it. And I'm going to press stop now.